Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Connection Offer Expenses or Assessment and Design Fees webinar. My name is Derek Fairbairn. I'm the Assistant Design Manager for Northern Powergrid. Joining me today is Chris Allenson, Policy and Markets, and Gary Campbell-John, who operates in our Connection Services Department. The format of today will be a 20-minute presentation, followed by a question and answer session. There is a listening mode for viewers with an opportunity to ask any questions at any point using the question bar on your screen. We've also taken the opportunity to allow some live polls to occur so we can obtain some constructive feedback, and also there's a hyperlink to allow you to send some feedback direct to ourselves with regards to the webinar, its content, and how useful you found it, together with any other comments you may feel appropriate. In terms of the first interactions of today, what you can see is a question, and in order to help us tailor the content of today's webinar, it would be appreciated if you could indicate on the screen now whether you are a consultant, a distribution, generation or storage customer, an unmetered customer, metered demand customer, ICP, IDNO, or you categorize yourself as other. I'll just give you another few seconds to push that in. Moving on to the second poll question, we'd appreciate if you could indicate if you made an application to Northern Powergrid since the introduction of assessment and design fees, which were introduced on the 6th of April 2018. Again, there is an opportunity there for you to indicate yes or no. Thank you very much for doing that. Moving on to the next slide and the need for upfront fees. The connection offer expenses, and more commonly known across the industry as assessment and design fees, were introduced to ensure the fairer allocation of costs and, as importantly, to help improve the efficiency of the connections process and the service that our connections customers received. When the UK government consulted with stakeholders on this issue, the majority of the respondents were in favour of allowing the DNOs to charge fees where the DNO had incurred connection offer expenses. I must remind those users who've joined today that these costs are not new. The DNOs have always recovered the cost of preparing connection offers, but these were previously recovered from those customers who accepted the connection offers. What was changed is the timing and who is required to pay for the service, and now the costs are being borne by those who directly request the service. Again, there's been a lot of industry discussion in and around this area, the capacity that was being utilised by DNOs in those types of engagements, the costs that were being borne by the DNOs, and obviously it was important in order to stand by the commitment made within the discussions about the fair recovery of costs and better levels of service to ensure that the upfront fees, or the fees that we were charging, were being borne by those customers who were seeking the service. We do believe that we are legally obliged to provide these connection offer under the Electricity Act, and in doing so we do incur expenses to do this. We only recover those costs that are reasonably incurred in providing those connection offers. The fees are designed to be cost neutral, and we do not make a profit in the fees that we charge. We've established the policy position. We believe that we've got fair, cost-reflective approach, and it meets the intentions of the regulations. Our implementation approach has driven better conversations with customers across all market segments, and we continue to strive to improve the service we offer, driven by conversations with customers and industry best practice. What do your fees contribute to? Typically, it's to cover the cost of processing your application, assessing the specific information, undertaking any site surveys and meetings required. We assess the impact on the existing distribution system. We maybe need to design reinforcement of the network, design an extension to the distribution system assets, preparing scheme drawings and quotations, and obtaining all the necessary technical and commercial approvals prior to making that formal connection offer. So there is quite a lot of content of what we actually do that makes up the fees that we charge out. In terms of what we've tried to do to ensure our customers do get as much information as possible, there is a variety of different information and resources available, and the fees that you pay will depend on the capacity and the voltage at which your connection is made. On the screen now, we've published information on our website. The hyperlinks are there for both what the connection offers are and also further information in terms of PDF downloadable documents that you can extract further information from. We've tried to provide a transparent customer guide, and if you look at that information and follow from left to right, as previously indicated, you look at the voltage and the type of connection, whether it's generation or demand. In the example shown, an HV connection greater than 1 MVA will attract a fee of £2,000 plus VAT. One of the key areas that we have done as part of the ongoing dialogue is understanding the charges we are levying and those areas that we think, because of what we have to do, whether there is scope to allow for some of the charges to be reassessed. An example I would give is that previously we would charge for 3 budget estimate options for a single site, so a customer will come through in, but what we've done is if a customer does come in and give us those options at that single application, instead of paying 3 fees associated with that, then the customer would only be charged a single fee, taking into account there is a little bit more work to do. So a single budget estimate, HV generation 1 MVA, would cost £280. 3 separate options would cost obviously 3 times that, and the new offer with those 3 options would be under a single application, which would cost £280 plus a further 20% uplift associated with the additional amount of considerations and assessment we have to do. So that would be £336 plus VAT, a saving of £504. It is important that we do recognise that customers are seeking to be doing some of the work themselves, and in order to do that, we need to give as much information as possible on our website to allow customers to get to the position without actually incurring a fee. And there's a wealth of information, so we've enhanced the amount of support we've given in terms of asking our engineers whether we've developed the demand and generation availability heat maps. We believe those are the most, I think, useful and best heat maps that are available. There are tools to calculate indicative prices. We have a contracted capacity register and also our long-term development statements. Again, both of the hyperlinks are shown on there, and it is important that when we do talk to customers, we want to try and ensure that the information we provide is as open as we can, without obviously moving across into where we believe that customers should make a formal budget application or a firm application. But hopefully the advice and guidance that we can give verbally, together with the information on our websites, allows customers a much more informed opinion about whether to proceed to making a formal application. When we talk about access to our engineers, it was certainly one of the drivers for the introduction of fees to help improve the service for customer experience. We've published contact details for our connections engineers on our website, so you can get a hold of the respective people that you feel appropriate to your inquiry. You can request a site visit from those engineers, whether we come to site or you come and meet our staff at our offices. You can book monthly surgeries, and also we do host a number of different connections forums and ICP seminars. Again, on the slide, there's a hyperlink there that you can follow, which provides those contact details. One of the key areas that I touched on surrounds network availability for heat maps, and again, shown on the slide at the moment, is links to where that information is. So we have demand availability, generation availability, and also we are keen to hear about whether you would support some further training on how to use our heat maps to make sure that when you are using all of the online information and having discussions with our engineers, they are as informed as possible. And certainly any ideas about further development and enhancements on our heat maps would be welcome as part of those interactions. I did indicate before that we do actually have an indicative price calculator which sits on the website at the present time. That does allow you to put some basic details in. It was developed along the lines of what you would previously expect, I think, from having discussions with our engineers over the phone, where they can just use knowledge that comes straight out of the head about the areas that they look after. But again, it is very helpful, I think, to provide that early indication to yourselves about what the indicative costs may actually be, to give you a rough and ready idea. All part of what we would hope would be good pre-planning work from your perspective before you actually make those applications. One of the key things that we are developing is a low voltage design tool. So the benefits to our customers is that they will be able to self-serve for LV budget estimates. They will be able to view locations and estimated costs of potential connections options. Certainly the big benefit to that, we believe, will be the quick response, potentially only minutes. And as part of developing that application, there will be ongoing consultation with stakeholders during Q1 and into Q2 of 2019. I'm specifically leading on that project, and certainly we are looking to ensure that that tool provides the outputs that our customers are seeking for, and rather than apply to Northern Powergrid for a budget estimate, then mirroring what we do when you do actually make a formal application for LV budget estimates, this tool will do a very similar task, and therefore that self-service, once you create your login account, then you can use that tool and go through a variety of different options before you actually then allow yourself to accept, as you would normally get through email or post by yourselves, a PDF formal budget estimate from ourselves. So you've self-served, and as I say, it will allow a variety of different demand and generation numbers to be put in and highlight on a red and green basis whether a cable is capable of taking that connection with an indicative cost. So we are ongoing with that development work with the hope that that system will go live by the end of 2019. There are also continuing opportunities for engagement with Northern Powergrid. We are holding an upcoming statement of work seminar that covers a large part of our EHV customers and also HV customers, as more and more of our network becomes fuller, and therefore the need to engage at a strategic level with National Grid is becoming more common. And for those of you who operate across the UK, you will have already found that that is quite a common practice now, certainly when you go above 5 MVA in terms of connection requests. There's a local authority LV design tool preview. I've just mentioned we are developing this budget estimating tool as part of that. We are having some engagement with some local authorities, so that's the stages of making sure that the tool, and certainly its usefulness when we talk about the expansion of EVs connecting onto the network. You know, at LV, that is a common area that we are seeing is going to be increasingly, I think, busy. There's a DG owner operator forum on the 20th of March, again looking to get in room with customers, discuss with them what we do, outage requirements, planning requirements, and again that two-way interaction allows you to understand where we are heading in terms of information curtailment impacts and so on. That will be the third DG forum, so we're seeking to continue and enhance that arena. 17th of April, we've got the Customer Connections Forum. We have ongoing connection surgeries. Again, there are hyperlinks for those sessions, and also a hyperlink to receive industry updates, invitations and connections news. That brings to an end the presentation material from myself. So moving on to the questions that we've received. There will be there have been a number of questions that have come through. I will start to pick some up. I will then invite my two colleagues to introduce themselves when they pick up questions from other parties who sent them in through. So here we've got question come through about when will the new LV tool be available. I say the plan is that that will be released by the end of 2019. It's important that we engage with stakeholders during Q1 and Q2. As with any IT tool, we want to make sure that it is fit for purpose and the results that you get out from that or what you would get. So, but the plan is to deliver that. The slides will be circulated following completion of that, following completion of today's session. So we'll hope to issue the slide deck out the early part of next week. Again, if that does generate any further questions you may think of after today's session and when you get them, then obviously the hyperlinks and the feedback to obviously ourselves will be contained in that as well. There is a further question on accuracy of heat maps and the updates that occur on the heat maps. What we have actually done is looked at areas associated with the amount of applications that come in. We originally updated heat maps on a quarterly basis. We then moved to updating our heat maps on a monthly basis, and the heat maps contain both the accepted and connected customers, accepted but not yet connected, and also the connection offers out. Given the volumes that go into that, then we feel that at the moment updating it on a monthly basis is a fair and true reflection of what our network looks like, and those areas where essentially we status them on a red, amber, green arrangement. And from that aspect, again, when you are seeking to look at opportunities for where capacity is more freely available, then it gives a good indication. Just looking down at some other questions, I think that we'll pick up Chris, if you want to pick up a question.
We've had a question about what we're doing to acknowledge the views of certain stakeholder groups on A&D fees. There have been representations. Those representations, whether to us as a company directly or more generally at DNOs as a community, we're treating those representations as confidential unless those parties say that they're explicitly not confidential, in which case we would share them. Where those representations have been made at industry level, they'll be discussed at industry level.
I think I'll pick up another question about what can we expect from upfront conversation with one of our engineers, how much information they can expect to get ahead of making a formal application. I'll give my view, and certainly I'll invite Gary to make a view on that. Certainly from an HV and LV perspective, what I do expect is, because the engineers operate within a geographical location, then if a customer does contact those engineers, then the engineer will have a good handle on what's going on in and around that area. So I would expect them to be able to relay verbally from what they know within, I say, their mind about what's operating in their patch, what kind of availability is like. As with anything, there are averages of types of costs that things take to get connected. So straightforward HV loop-in type arrangement where there's an existing cable in the vicinity, it appears to be suitable and the capacity appears to be there, then certainly drawn on that instant knowledge, what I would call that instant knowledge, is something that I think is what I would expect from an HV and LV perspective, which will give it, again, certainly in advance of the LV tool coming along, that's something that I think should be useful in line with the indicative estimating tool that currently sits on there. So if you went and used the indicative estimating tool and contacted the local engineer, then from my aspect, I think you could have a more informed discussion. You went and used on the tool, it's going to be this type of job. Does that sound about right? And are you aware of anything on a local basis that may impact? So it's certainly, I think that the benefit of using the tools and then contacting the engineers will facilitate a much more engaging discussion with those engineers, and I think certainly point in the direction of how you want to take that conversation. So that's what I would generally expect at an HV/LV level. Gary, do you want to cover anything off from EHV?
Yeah, I think it's on the same lines, Derek, is that we welcome the upfront engagement. We've got to recognise that these EHV projects are often complex, both from a technical and commercial basis, and having access to the knowledge that the commercial engineers at Northern Powergrid have before customers make the application can often save everyone time and effort. As you've already mentioned, our contact details are published on the website, so if there are any EHV customers out there looking to connect large demand or generation connections, get in touch with us and we'll give you as much information as we've got in our heads and in the company systems that we publish online.
Yeah, great. What I probably will pick up on and expand on a little bit more is where we're heading to between the heat maps, which obviously do predominantly look at the higher end of our AHV network and certainly into the AHV network, and the LV budget estimating tool that we're developing. Part and parcel of the longer term strategy will be, and again I would appreciate your feedback and thoughts and views on this, is if we have the heat maps which look at demand and generation at an HV level, and we pick up obviously our primaries and certainly looking at an LV level, if we get, to all intents and purposes, an LV heat map where you can punch in a number, say 150 kV, and it will give an indication on a red and green status, then the idea would be is once we get ourselves satisfied that the engine that runs those calculations from an LV perspective, if we can bring the data which then feeds up onto the HV network, and if we can plug the gap between the LV network and the HV network, then that will be part and parcel of the next step review about further developing that IT system. So although we're starting off looking at our LV network, we do understand that as more data becomes available, then certainly it may well be an area worth exploring. Again, the investment is significant. We've got a full-time engineer supporting the heat maps. We are looking to spend over £1 million on the LV budget estimating tool. So from that perspective, these are significant investments and they do take time. So we'll continue, I think, to have a look in that area.
We had a question about the scope of fees that we charge for. We're aware that we've set our scope, or the DNOs have set their scope. We're applying fees from HV through to the larger from EHV through to the larger LV, and that's for generation and demand. We believe that's the best fit in terms of the spirit and the intent of the original of the published regulations. They're the ones that are developed by the government. We are conscious that other DNOs have made other decisions, and at the moment with no reason to review or change the scope or the range of our fees, but we'll keep things under review.
Yeah. Sorry, we are just going through to make sure that we've covered all of the questions off that have been submitted. Again, it's sometimes questions come to mind after a session like this is conducted, so please do use the links that we've provided and will provide with the slide deck to send any further through. I think we've covered all of the questions off that have been submitted. Many thanks for pushing them out to ourselves. What I'd like to do is in order, before we close off the webinar, then there is a further poll that we'd like to seek some input from yourselves on, and we would be helpful to understand and inform ourselves if the webinar today has helped to inform you of your understanding of Northern Powergrid's approach to A&D fees. Again, if it has, then please do select yes. If it hasn't, then please select no B. And if you are in a neutral position, in other words, you don't wish off the view, then please select C from on the button. While you are selecting your answers on that, the second poll question is, what else could we be doing to engage with you on this topic? Again, we're seeking your views using the question bar. It's important for us to understand whether a webinar is the correct forum, the stakeholder surgeries, the seminars that we hold away from here, the engagements that can occur on a daily, weekly basis with our engineers, and your interactions with the material on our website. We do seek, and it is important that we do understand if there are other avenues that we can communicate with yourselves on this issue, so please do feed all of those things back in. That brings an end to today's webinar. We did, and it is very pleasing to say, we've had a further question just drop in, and straight away I think it's certainly something that we've had in our minds, and you know, about a heat map understanding seminar, and I think that is something that we would be able to facilitate and support, and again, the types of interactions that we could have with stakeholders interested in that. And whether a seminar or a webinar, you know, again, you get benefits from both, but if you think that face-to-face interactions, because there will be availability of engineers while we're hosting that seminar, then you get a dual benefit of both, you know, getting the education on our heat maps, but also then taking the opportunity to sit down with our staff and have discussions about your individual project. So Thank you very much for that additional question. With that, I will close today's webinar, and thank you very much, Gary, thank you very much, Chris, and thank you to those who've joined ourselves today.